not only within the department, but with all our structures and campus. The major thrusts have not changed. The three major thrusts are sovereignty and territorial integrity, internal security and stability, not only by way of the Constitution, but also by the revised PNP modernization law, where internal security is the principal responsibility of the armed forces of the Philippines. And thirdly, our welfare of the veterans. Under this, we intend to do this by modernizing the armed forces, security cooperation, and disaster and institutional resilience with the nuance that I proposed to the body earlier. Defense transformation is crucial. We need to develop our own civilian human resource components in the Defense Department to develop a cadre of specialists who we will be able to send to school, who we will be able to train, who we will be able to mature in leadership, to network with their compatriots as civil servants. And unfortunately, the current civil service law do not serve the purpose of our department. Hence, we need the defense transformation. Of course, information and communications technology and cyber operations and the all-important operational security. Given the recent resilience efforts, joint resilience efforts that you may have seen, where we have uncovered fake Filipinos and other nefarious practices of aliens. Now we go to the highlights of the proposed program. Our budget for this year is 295.177 billion, 16.16% year-on-year growth, 4.3% of the expenditure program. Nonetheless, with my conversations with the DBM and the DOF, I specified that this year's budget be MOE heavy because we need to acclimatize the government to approximate the maintenance and operating expenditures we will need to adequately use the previously ordered capabilities that are arriving. And this does not even include the strategic infrastructure we need to do, such as a dockyard and other services, which we have to do ourselves, given our operational security environment. Secondly, the paradigm of joint use of facilities does not work for us. Honestly, it's an experiment that has failed, and mostly to the disadvantage of the armed forces of the Philippines. And might I say the BCDA is one shining example. For the past 26 years, the armed forces has only gotten about 42 billion for that, when 1 year's pensions are 60+ billion already. You have 57% for personal services, 32% for MOE, and 11% for capital outlay. Sans modernization. The DND Office of the Secretary has 2 billion this year. It includes the other the other offices under the DND. It has a 4% increase, and the AFP and civilian bureaus from the regular agency fund, the AFP has an increase of 16%, And the civilian bureaus have an 8.9% increase. The breakdown is shown as a share of the national expenditure plan. The share is about 4% in total. Year on year, the increase of the PBAU, it will show the biggest increase. I think it's 34%. And that will go for the pension benefits, not pensions, but pension benefits that legislation provides our veterans to fund the legislation that was already previously done. You will also see that the Air Force and the Navy are getting a bigger chunk of the increase, although the Army has the biggest piece of the pie because of their size, their participation in internal security, and their expenditures in humanitarian assistance and disaster response. Next slide, please. So, automatic appropriations are 4 billion. Special purpose fund, those are the pensions. 61 billion for armed forces pensions, and the veterans benefit pensions are 11 billion. On the comparisons, we had a total of 271 billion last year and 295 this year. The bigger increase is on MOE, as you can see, as I said earlier. That is to pay for the cost of gasoline, diesel, bunker, for steaming hours, prepositioning of our needed stores, and expenditures of ammunition used in training and other exercises. We have a very, very high rate of training at this time with joint and multilateral exercises, bilateral exercises, as well as individual retraining. That is why also we need a bigger authorized troop strength, because we will need reserve forces to deploy for rotation basis for the RNR of our troops. Secondly, we see that the coverage in certain areas are a bit thin. That is why our ability to respond, whether to natural calamities or to other incidents, are limited. No matter what kind of mobility you put in there, it will not take the place of an adequate force structure. Mind you, for rough calculations, for our population and size of our country and the unique location, we need about 360,000 active duty men and women in the armed forces and civilian human resource personnel. But we will be proposing a 10-year program just to increase it to about 225,000. That is more digestible. But we cannot make do with the current status quo. Next slide. On the variances, most D&D bureaus received increases except for the government arsenal, with a reduction of 8.19 because of restructuring of their capabilities. We have included the government arsenal, and we have reviewed their an agency and management review. So we are instilling fundamentals there for governance, for physical security, for safety of the personnel working there, because there is, that is a very dangerous area where they do not even have a trauma clinic. Once reviewed, we will begin to fund it. And we also support the proposal of decentralizing it, to have one in every island group of the province, and we support that initiative. The NDCP has a reduction of this year's budget. There was a one-time increase last year, I believe. There was a one-time increase last year, that's why there is a reduction this year. Nonetheless, we continue to review the curriculum of the NDCP, and my vision is to turn it into a bona fide research institution. I do not believe in any, except if it is highly technical. For example, engineering or a master's in business administration. I do not believe in higher education which has a pro forma or set standard of teaching a paradigm. I believe that national security and national defense should be multidisciplinary, particularly on the higher education sphere. Secondly, we opened up the National Defense College to younger applicants, where they still have the ability to process and to research. Thirdly, we opened up also slots to our enlisted personnel. A lot of our enlisted personnel are college graduates with extremely high intellect. And to close the door to them means we lose out much needed talent. Also, our target market for the NDCP is the civilian bureau, so that you can network for national security basis. So as I said earlier, Your Honors, the Philippine Navy has the largest increase with 8 billion. This is really also to anticipate the arrivals of 8 more frigates that were ordered in the previous dispensation. And we still need to catch up with the shipyard and the dockyard, which we are busy right now working on the segregation of 300 hectares in the PBDEC area for the Philippine Navy as a naval dockyard. The current dockyard in Sangli is already very small, heavily silted, and congested. PIVAO received the highest increment, and it is for the Veterans Hospitalization and Medical Care Program. The department received a total of 23.2 billion or 8.55 increase in fiscal year 2026 compared to fiscal year 2025. The comparison of the modernization program, may I stress that to be realistic, these amounts for modernization are extremely modest. And to me, that's why the utilization rate was quite low, because a lot of this go just to repayments of multi-year obligational authorities. Fine. However, to keep up with the required pace of modernization and to keep up with technology, we need to scrap the modernization law of 15-year horizons. I do not see the logic of having 15-year acquisition horizons when technology changes every 3 months or 6 months. Nonetheless, in hybrids like drones, etc., these are enhancements. But one cannot have an adequate defense without your core capabilities. Your frigates, your conversion of your light infantry divisions into motor